Welcome to the Gentleman's Talk, where the podcast talks about a man's battle with mental health, his personal experiences, and his journey to be a better soul. Hosted by James Dean Littlejohn.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Gentleman's Talk. Hope everyone's alright, and hope everyone that's hopefully listened to the motivational minute that was delivered this morning. It certainly gave me food for thought. Really interested in motivational minute, that. Got an interesting thing to talk about today, actually. So, sort of a bit of a funny one, really. I've been feeling a little bit low today. Now, I know why. I 100% know why. I've had a rather exciting weekend, so it was very positive. And, I did a lot, and as you probably heard from the last podcast, it was a roller coaster of emotions for me. And I keep, like everything, when you do these things and you go out and get involved and you have the excitement, when you're dealing with mental health illness, you always seem to forget, no matter what. I mean, even 10 years in, even battling it, I still forget. I get so consumed by the moment that I forget about the fallout, because I have an element of living for the moment and an element of excitement because I'm out of my comfort zone again and I'm rebuilding myself. And then at the same time, I have, that lack of respect for the fallout for it. So, but it's interesting. So I sort of done my podcast yesterday and managed to, just get through the evening. And, I watched, obviously I had an enjoyable time of watching snooker and watching Ronnie O'Sullivan win. So, it was a pleasant evening. But I did notice that I wasn't fully engaged with my family and I wasn't fully engaged with myself. I was very spaced out. I had been anyway, but, it was... I could even tell when I delivered the podcast how excitable I was about the weekend and talking about it and how much it had impacted me mentally. But I always forget about that physical element, and I forget about the hangover. I forget about alcohol not being good for you when you're on antidepressants. But I don't want to stop my life. But I need to respect the fallout, and the fallout is always going to be, we all have a heavy weekend, there's a bit of drinking involved, and there's always going to be an element of a hangover, dare we say, especially as Brits, we love a good bit of liquor, and it's interesting. We always go over the top, but you always get that element of, sadness, I suppose. Not a sadness. Your body's consumed all of its energy, so you're running a bit low. You're not thinking, sparking as positively as you normally would. Well, you imagine that's always exacerbated when you're dealing with antidepressants and, PTSD and sort of kind of anxiety. Those sort of elements, when you chuck them into the mix, it gets difficult. And I don't think I'm ever going to learn. I'm going to try and learn, obviously, but at the same time, is it worth the fallout? Knowing what's going to happen, just to have that occasion, have that fun? I think it is, because, we're trying to rebuild, trying to better ourselves, and it's we find ways to adapt and overcome, don't we? That's what we do as humans, and especially I think as men. And I'm not saying we're too different, but we are, in the sense that men are expected to adapt and overcome in a lot of scenarios. So are women. I get that. But men sort of when it comes to everything, like I said, DIY, mechanical, whatever. We're all expected to just learn. I get asked the craziest questions in my house that not many people would know, but I constantly, luckily I've got a drive for learning, so I do learn a lot of shit, which is quite interesting, and I do get asked sort of random questions. I think my wife was asking me random questions about, she's reading a book at the moment of Afghanistan, and she didn't understand what the what the Navy SEALs and all this, and she was talking about this, and she was talking about the Marines, and she was like, what's this, and so, and I know about it. Obviously, being ex-military does help massively, but it's just a crazy thing. You wouldn't expect that, I suppose, but it's a bit of a funny one. So we are expected to adapt and overcome. So it was interesting. So I do this thing at the moment, which I think is quite interesting, and at the moment I've been so I've got a bit of a mix on today. Not jealousy. I'm looking at my notes here right in front of me and trying to talk about the music. But anyway, I do this thing. And I've been doing it for quite a while now, but I've been using my mobile phone. And I did notice that when I'm recording podcasts, it's difficult for me to dip into my mobile phone. So I came up with an alternative just recently. But what I'm on about is I've been writing down my thoughts quite a bit, because I do think of things at random times. And it's normally when I'm sort of kind of away from the computer, completely de-stressed. And that's when I can really focus. But by the time I conduct my walk, or I'm out and about or whatever, I've always forgotten by the time I come to an occasion where I would think to write it down. So, and then I would always feel a bit disheartened, because it would normally be something that I'm really interested in, but then I come back to the stresses of the house. And when you walk through the door and you've got the noise of the kids, and you just hit with a barrage of like, oh shit, yeah, I've got bills, I've got this and this. It's just almost like your house sometimes, especially at the moment with cost of living, is becoming a difficult place. And I think the way that we've all been imprisoned in our house for this pandemic it's almost to the point where I get a bit of resentment. I like to be outside the house now, even if it's in the garden, just stood there. I like to be out of the house. I don't like to be in the house, because I was imprisoned in there. And it's not what I'm interested in. So there's a lot of stresses. So when I come in, I forget. I just like, and then sometimes I'll be like sat there really digging deep in my brain to think about what I thought. So I developed this thing where I just go onto my notes on my phone, and I would literally just write some bits down. I'd be like, yeah, okay, that's good. And I'd write down one-liners or little notes. Well, really interesting. So, and that's where a lot of my topics come up from, because I'll be thinking about something when I'm on my own, and I go, oh, fucking hell, I've struggled with that. And then I'll just, because I overanalyze and I dive deep into my thoughts all the time, and I do a lot of, like I said, I still do my meditation. I'm in my brain a lot more than I used to be, but I'm still stressed. I still, like, today has been the utter stressful day. I can't even speak it. Most utter stressful day today. I've just felt stressed and tired and just exhausted. So I developed this thing where I would write these things down. So very interesting, some of the stuff I come up with. But I've developed that even further now. So, and I started yesterday. So I bought myself a journal. And I know my dad did this for years, and he's got an amazing journal with all of his thoughts. And for me, am I interested in reading it? I don't think I am, actually, because I don't really want to know, because for me, it's a personal diary. It's nice, something nice to have hold of, something that, maybe when I'm on my deathbed, I can, sort of kind of die with his extra memories, sort of thing. But I was very interested in it, and I asked him why he was doing it, and he was like, just get thoughts out. Sometimes I have a lot on my mind, or someone's upset me, or, we might have had an argument with me or whatever, and, he'll write down his personal thoughts, and they were the olden days. So I started developing it. It's around the same age as he did, I think, actually. And I just went, well, I do this. I do it on my iPhone. Other mobile phones are available, and I've been doing it for a while. So, but I've noticed that I don't watch a lot of TV anymore. I don't rarely play computer games. I'm on my computer in my bar, so I'm sick of the bar, and so I've noticed I just listen to a lot of music, and I just get a lot of food for thought, and normally watch educational type videos. Not pornography, but although that can be educational. But yeah, just jump on the internet and watch odd, fun videos, fun facts. I love taking in, absorbing facts all the time. It just really stimulates my brain. So yeah, I developed it. I developed it into writing my own journal, and that's what I did. So the first note that I wrote in yesterday was, I was sat on the toilet, and I was was brushing my teeth last night before bed, and I just felt, like I said, I felt exhausted. I just felt, I put it down to the beer and the time, which I'm not naive, I'm not stupid. Christ, I'm an adult. Do you know what I mean? I know exactly what's going to happen, but that's not the element that concerns me, or what happens. So we all get tired, but what I tend to do is I tend to go deeper than that, and I tend to sit there and question my existence, and that's the scary bit, because I only get that when I'm in a really low mood. So the fallout from having a good weekend is it has some really deep ramifications for that, and in the sense that I'll just be exhausted, I'll be consumed, but then I'm sitting there going, well, what's next? You've had a good weekend, mate. Can you top that? No. And I spoke about this in my last podcast, and it just gets deeper and deeper, and it goes to the point, well, what's the point? Then what I started doing, which was a new thing for me, because I'm processing a lot more in my brain, I'm trying to think harder about a lot more things. I then developed it even further and went, okay, James, there's a pattern here, mate. There's a pattern between you drinking, and I needed to write it down, because exactly as I was thinking in my brain, so it might be mixed up, it might be crazy, but when I come up with these, but I wanted to just get it down in exactly as I was thinking it. As I was thinking it, I was typing it, and it just sort of kind of talk about it and just go, that's where I got to yesterday, which was just sat on the toilet randomly after sat in the bar thinking, what's the point in life, etc., etc. What are we here to do? What's our purpose? And I said that's a horrible thought to have, because our purpose, and I've put this in a huge podcast. The purpose of life is just to enjoy it, just to have fun and take full advantage of it. It's not there for anything special. Well, it is special because you're here, but you don't have to try and chase things. But I do. The mental health side of me and the PTSD cuts in, and I just massively, I go from I go through different phases. So I wrote this down anyway. So this is how I put it. This is as my experiences of the last week. An overwhelming amount of anxiety that affects my mood, my job and decisions. Then excitement, crazy, fun. Then doubt and low mood, underpinned by questioning my existence. And will I have a better night next? And when is the next one? What is next? That I wrote down exactly as I was on the toilet, and I just went, that was what was running through my head. I was like overanalyzing the existence bit, and then I was going like, this happens now all the time. Every time I want to do something, it's same happened the last time I cancelled, but I didn't cancel, so I missed the fun aspect of the build-up. So I dealt with the anxiety, but then instead of dealing with it like I did in this occasion, which is why it was a new experience for me, because I said I'd gone to the extremities in the sense that I'd travelled somewhere, I'd stayed in an unfamiliar environment, I'd had a lot of fun, I'd reconnected with people I knew and met new people. So there was a massive amount of information and excitement and everything. So I hadn't had that recently, and I've had nights around with say Kieran's and my brother and all that sort of stuff, and Nelly and Billy, all these good people that I'm socialising with. I had really good nights with them, but I've not had a build up of anxiety fully, because for me, I did have a little bit of anxiety when I was going around Billy's, because he was a new friend. But I've never had anxiety with Kieran, for instance, because Kieran, there's no pressure. It's 28 years of friendship. He's seen the worst and he's seen the best. Hopefully, maybe some best more to come. I don't know. So for me, I don't ever feel the anxiety with him. But then I have done before. I've cancelled, like when we were going out, like say. So on the last occasion when I cancelled, I didn't have the crazy excitement. I just had the doubt, low mood. I'd let someone down. I'd let myself down. And what's next? Oh, am I ever going to be able to go out again? So it's kind of fucking messed up, isn't it, really, how my brain thinks. And obviously I overanalyze this with the added of the excitement and crazy fun. So the fallout has been slightly more intense on this occasion. So it was interesting. And then that's what I was thinking last night. So, and then I sort of woke up this morning and I felt stressed. Like I didn't want to really get out of bed, but that's just, again, the tiredness. I got that. So I dragged my carcass out and, did my normal routine. So, good breakfast, walk the dog, etc., set up. And I was actually early this morning. So, and then as I went through the day, just developed worse and worse. I just felt worse and worse. And I was sat there and I was trying to engage with colleagues and, I just didn't feel in the mood to engage and talk with people. And it was horrible to feel like that. And everyone was like, it's just a hangover, mate. And when, this is day 3 for starters, and second of all, it is exacerbated by the PTSD side of things, and noting that the tablets don't cut in as quick. So yeah, it was an interesting occasion. So what I've been doing, and it sort of tailors me on really nicely to why I'm doing this. So I think it's really important actually to get my moods out. And once I wrote it down, I went to sleep because I felt like that was heavy on my mind. And I went to sleep and I was like, brilliant. And I woke up this morning and reviewed it and went, okay, yes, that is exactly what's happening. This is what's happening with my mood swings. And I need to get over this, or I need to develop a coping mechanism to get through it. I don't know what that is yet. That's something I'm going to have to research. Something I'm going to have to look into. Maybe someone out there who's listening knows a way that can listen to this craziness and go, yeah, this is what you need to do. And without the stating the obvious, it's then just don't go out or don't just don't drink. Again, I always revert back to, we're here to have experiences, and as much as you like to. As much as we don't like to glamorise drinking, no good night started with a salad, did it? So I'm conscious of that, and I've always had good occasions with drink, and it's never been a problem until I was dealing with the mental health side of things. And like I said, I didn't drink for 6 years, so for 6 years I never touched it. And then I'm back in, and I've sort of dabbled and enjoyed, but I've got a lot of respect for it because I do understand that there is a fallout from it, but I'm still learning with my own, my own body and my own mind. I'm still learning on how to adapt these things. And then, yeah, I had the stress just developed. I tried to cut the grass to try and take my mind off of it, rebuild my bike this afternoon, ready to sell it. So, I was trying to keep busy, trying to keep myself focused. And, I didn't. I ended up going in, and the kitchen was a state because, bless my daughter, she was trying to make tea while my other daughter was going to the doctor's. And I sort of kind of come in, and it just looked like chaos to me. I'd like to say it was organised chaos, but it really wasn't organised chaos. And I just went, all I could think about was I really enjoy my tea. I like my food. I don't want this messed up. And, of course, it was everybody else's fault but my own. And if anything, I made that situation worse. So I was conscious of this, and I've gone, I'm craving a bit of sugar. So I already know that my body is just going, go to sleep, mate. Go to sleep and just sort yourself out. Rest and recuperate and get some positive feelings going. And we'll have to see how long this takes, what the process is, and then I can develop it again and again. And this is where we keep learning. This is where we keep advancing with our mind. We have to go to these, we have to try these things to see how we're going to react. If you're dealing with a mental health condition and you know that a situation is stressful, then obviously the macro course is don't put yourself in that situation if it's stressful. But as I've said, unfortunately, we don't get to predict what the stress is, and we don't get to predict what the anxiety, when anxiety is going to strike, or how the PTSD is going to develop, or what your mental state's going to do. And for me, that's the key function, is to keep trying certain things, knowing that is worth doing. That is worth the anxiety. Like, I know for a fact it was worth going to see my mate in Wales. It was absolutely worth it. Key is amazing. It was really, really was. I know that I've been to Bournemouth Beach with Nelly and Kieran, and that's absolutely worth the journey, worth the stress, worth the anxiety, because it's a good fallout. And it's positive. I know that it's really good to go and see my friend Billy and have a good night with him, because we've got a lot in common. So I get good communication out of him. So, the same as my brother, actually, is absolutely surprised me. He's coming down to stay with me, hopefully in a week or so, I think. Maybe Friday or the Friday after, I'm not sure. And I haven't mentioned this before, but it just struck a chord then, just as I was thinking. And I was thinking about the friendship and the fallout. And on a couple of occasions, I've organised a couple of things. And my brother, I'd love to get him onto a podcast, actually, a live podcast, because, he struggles with mental health. I know he does. But he's such a fucking great character, so hilarious that, I want to rebuild him and I want to support him. So, yeah, he's coming down to stay with me, so we're going to have a night and we're just going to chew the fat and have a good time and talk about old memories. So, and also rebuild new memories, so it's going to be a really, really amazing time. And at the same time, try and add a couple of extra people to the mix, if I can, but really important that I'm going to be locking it in my brother, because he wants to come down and see me, and that's absolutely fantastic. So I know that any anxiety I'll feel, he'll probably have the same anxiety of coming down and want to cancel, and all this sort of stuff, because he goes through the same motions as I've done. But again, learning about the outcome of it, learning to develop it, learning to engage with it. And like I said, all of these occasions I've had, and not to just name drop, because there's plenty of different people that I've had good times with, but just an example, like a near example in the last 4 months of people that I've had absolutely amazing time with, and I have suffered afterwards in certain circumstances. I have had the hangovers that give me the fallout, but it's worth it. It's worth that. So, I've got to keep trying things to make sure that, the juice is worth the squeeze. And if it isn't, and it's not worth the fallout, then that's something that I would avoid in going forward. There's certain aspects of my job that stress me out, and I'm like, I'm going to try and avoid the stress, because that's what we do. We live and learn all the time. And it's just a developing process, isn't it? And I'm understanding myself, and I'm hopefully the people out there listening, you're engaged with it as well, and you're trying these new ventures, making sure, seeing if they work. They might work, they might not work, but we're trying. And as we develop our mental state and we build ourselves up, we get better and better, and we build up resilience back to our almost, the primal state before the incident or whatever's caused your mental health episode, whether it's a relationship, friendship, whatever, PTSD, crash, military, whatever your aspect is, we've got to rebuild you. And I do see on a lot of forums, actually, I think I saw one earlier on that just, again, struck a chord with me, that this person went, I have absolutely no light at the end of the tunnel, and I don't know why I'm here. I think that was pretty much it. And someone put just a one-liner, just sort of saying, you're here for a reason. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. Stay strong and contact me if you need someone to talk to. And that's all it takes, just that little bit of support, just to build yourself, But I have noticed there's a lot of people that are, dealing with mental health problems. Now, this sort of brings me on to something that I also watched yesterday before I went to bed. So I was flicking through, and I'd read an article, and it was actually somebody that it's a bit of a love-hate relationship, actually. Piers Morgan. Some people hate him, some people like him. I like the way that he's quite forward and abrupt and is honest. That's what I like about him. He's honest. Yes, he delivers it like an absolute bellend. He literally, he makes me cringe. He's got a face you want to just boff in, mush up, and he's got a voice that's got a tone to it. But when you strip away, those elements, there's nothing left. He's just a piece of shit. But what you do get is honesty. And he is an honest person. And he's been, chastised because of his honesty, ostracized because of his honesty, because people just don't want to hear it. But sometimes you need that. And I spoke about this before in other podcasts. Again, tough love. People need to know the honest truth. And we need honesty in this world. And I think that's where we've gone wrong. Everybody tries to mollycoddle things. But I'm an honest person. I say it as it is now. I don't really. And a lot of people kind of think I'm a bit rude. I've been told that many, many times, but I'm not rude. I'm not aggressive. I just say it as it is. I'm just like, I'm fucking here. What the hell's going on? I think it was a comment that was made actually in McDonald's on Saturday, and I did remember it. And I was stood there and I just paid like 15 quid for this massive meal at McDonald's. And I remember standing there and there was like a queue of people, and I just asked the question. I was like, well, how long have they been waiting here? And they were like, I've been here 20 minutes. And I was like, well, I'm not fucking waiting here 20 minutes for fast food. That's ridiculous. And this woman turned around and went, well, it's a bit rude. We're all just waiting peacefully. And I just sort of went, and I said to her, well, it's fine, but I'm paying for a fast food service, and you're telling me I'm going to wait 20 minutes to half an hour for it. That's ridiculous. So, I said it as it was. And I, took a bit of offence. So, but anyway, I like Piers Morgan for that aspect. And whilst I was dealing with this, because I typed in mental health because I was in that float of mine and I needed that reassurance. Maybe doing a bit of research whilst I was there, and there was an interesting topic, and this is something that I want to debate actually. And he said there's a difference between mental health and mental illness. Now, I've dealt with this because I've done a lot of mental health sort of courses and things like that. And for me, mental health was always the context. It was always mental health conditions, mental health this. Then all of a sudden, about a year ago, it started changing to mental illness. And a lot of people said, why are you making mental illness? What's the category? And they were saying, well, there's a difference between mental health problems and there's a difference and mental illness problems. Now, I sort of looked into a little bit of this yesterday, and I don't want to go into it too strongly because I do want to have a debate on this, and this is what I wanted to do in my next live. I wanted to know what that person is, interpretation, and just sort of kind of talk about it because I've got quite a strong opinion actually. And when I dealt with this about a year ago, I actually had a debate with a high-ranking officer who said to me, I don't know why they're calling it mental illness. What's the no difference between mental health and mental illness? And I said, well, actually, when you look at the way they're categorising it, they're looking at mental health is like stress. Every day, so we deal with mental health problems on a daily basis because we experience stress. We experience minor anxiety. We experience tiredness. We experience overthinking. This is a mental health thing. We experience pressures with our job, pressures with our family. So that is what I would actually categorise as mental health problems, because mental health problems there are stuff that some people can deal with and some people can't. There is a huge difference. Some people deal with stress and thrive on stress, and then there's people that literally collapse under stress. And then people would go, well, are there mental health problems? Well, no, they're just not geared to be dealing with that stress level. So we shouldn't put them in that situation. And then you're instantly removing the problem with mental health. So, and then I looked alternately about the mental illness aspect of it. And I did agree. And not to put a label on it, and not because I fall into that category, because I'm not that selfish, but I agreed with the way that they dealt with it. Now, I dealt with it in the sense that mental illness to me is like PTSD, manic depression, bipolar disorder, autism. That I think that's a mental problem. So I sort of categorize, very, very much so those, and there's plenty more. I categorize those as an actual illness. There's something that you have to take a medication for. Manic depression, you can rebuild yourself. PTSD can be curable. There's facts that it isn't curable, and I've had debates with people about that, and I'm saying there is levels of PTSD that, and proof's in the pudding. I can't process it, and I'm not dragging myself through this mental health, mental illness episode, if you like, because for shits and giggles, I don't get kicks out of this. I don't get kicks out of feeling like shit. I don't get kicks out of getting emotional. I don't get kicks out of getting angry. So I I fall into that category because of the PTSD and the manic depression tendencies and the anxiety. But theoretically, if you took away PTSD, I wouldn't have the mental illness of anxiety and manic depression. I don't think I would, because I never had it before. So for me personally, I know I can revert back to that. It's not something I've had. It's not, that's like an incident issue. But there is obviously bipolar disorder, which you're born with, ADHD, you're born with and can go undiagnosed for absolutely years. We're only really grasping the mental illness side of things. But I had to agree with what Piers Morgan said, and that was the aspect that he said. The system at the moment is clogged up because there is no difference between mental health and mental illness. They're all in one lump. So you could almost have somebody in a long waiting list that's dealing with, say a relationship split up, and, they're a bit, suicidal because they fell in love with that person. Now, that's not their ability to, they're not depressed because of it. I don't think so. I'm not saying that they won't be, but they could develop into it. But if it was captured early enough, you could almost stop that. You could almost assist it or stop it from progressing to the depths. But we need a quicker route to passage for them, and sort of let the deep specialists deal with the mental health illness problems or the mental illness problems. Help them, because then they can pump more time into the people that are having the severities, like your diagnosis on your autism, your diagnosis on your ADHD, diagnosis on your bipolar, getting the medication out there, getting them functioning properly through life, and diagnose at an early stage. I absolutely know my brother struggled for years to try and get his daughter diagnosed, and he absolutely felt the pain of trying to deal with a child with no support whatsoever, because everything's clogged up. And then you've also got, this massive pandemic at the moment with children who have been locked up, and their whole, through the pandemic side of things, and just a massive fallout. We're dealing with massive issues with the internet and social media and how it's consuming children. But there's nothing in the system to quickly deal with those problems. So they do develop further into bigger issues, manic depression, bulimia, sort of attempted sort of suicide or self-harming, whatever. It all develops into that because we're not grasping them early enough. So there was an interesting thought there from Piers Morgan, and I kind of related to it. I kind of went, actually, I could look at the way, as we grow with mental health and mental illness, and mental injury was another one. So instead of you could almost break it down if you really wanted. Another one I heard was mental injury. So you could have mental health as a category, and that can be kind of quick diagnosis for, you've had a relationship problem, you've had whatever, so an alcohol problem or a drug problem, and kind of route to passage straight down there, try and catch them early. And then you could almost have the mental illness category, the mental illness category, dealing with your, like say your ADHDs, your bipolars, etc., have a route to passage with a deeper psychiatrist, and then you can also have another category, which is what I heard about, which I would almost then move out of the illness category and probably into the mental injury, or I would have been in mental injury first and helped me being diagnosed even quicker than the 3 or 4 years that it took to get somebody to listen to me. And then I could have gone into there and dealt with a PTSD specialist or a depression specialist in a much quicker timeline and gone, this is my symptoms, okay, almost signposting us to the right direction to deal with a faster route. So you can really concentrate on one path dealing with illnesses, stuff that, that needs medication, your health issues, which is like your stress, your minor anxiety, your mood swings and things like that, which, if not dealt with early, can develop into bigger things, and then you become mental illness. And then if you have a car crash, you might have a soldier that's been, into a war zone or something like that, PTSD, car crash, PTSD. You can have these things, even, right down to the PTSD of sort of kind of abuse, relationship abuse, anything like that. You can just almost target them there. So you can deal with a specialist that's going to work in that zone and stop them from progressing into other areas. Or quickly identifying it and going, nope, you've gone past me, mate. You need to go to that. You need to go to that category. You need this next one up. Or, actual fact, no, you're not that bad. I think you can just go to this one here, have a couple of sessions in the mental health episode, the mental health area. Have a couple of therapy sessions, a couple of group therapy sessions, talk about it. Let's get it all out in the open and progress forward. So I certainly see that there's longevity in that. There's some real food for thought can be put into that, and how we deal with our mental health. Because I know for a fact, like I said, if I'd have been, say, into a mental injury zone right at the start, saying, right, he's had a fucking car crash, this is his third one, alarm bells ringing. It could have even been caught on the first one because it manifested from the first one, heightened by the second, and then just basically devastated by the third. So you could have gone, do you know what, we can just keep putting him into the mental injury category every time and just suppressing it, dealing with it, suppression, dealing with it. Why are we waiting? Look at the severity, categorise a severe crash, look at where you think you may need to go. We need to be more pragmatic about how we approach this. We need to be more involved in how we approach this. It's a very interesting idea. It's certainly the way that I would look at it. I don't know how to manage that. That needs some serious food for thought. But it's an interesting way of dealing with things, because I think that at the moment we are just categorising everything as, we're not quite sure, is it mental health, mental injury, mental health and well-being? What is the category? We're adding these little, acronyms and stuff and extra bits on top, which is just really clogging up the system even more, because we're adding wellness onto health and well-being. Mental health and well-being is the big thing now, and it's like, but you've just increased my workload now, but given me no extra staff, and now I've got another complete another thing to learn about. Now, mental health and well-being would be great if it was on the first category, and then you had mental injury, and then you had mental illness. So yeah, by all means, health and well-being can be incorporated into a lovely little bubble. But at the moment, we've got everybody, bottlenecking to this one category, and we're just bolstering on new bits, but not really addressing the situation. So for me personally, I think that Piers Morgan had a lot to say about that, and he is saying that, mental health, like anybody, there is people out there that will abuse that system. They will say that they've got mental health conditions, and it's really hard to interpret that, because you need a specialist, and a specialist takes X amount of, like I said, 3 years to get someone to listen to me. Now, I shouted from the rooftops every time they phoned me, I went, I'm not fucking right, mate. I'm not right. There's something wrong with me. I'm angry. I said it to everyone, doctors, the lot. But nobody listened. And then it got to the three-year point, and I think it was almost 4 years, encroaching on 4 years. And I went, fucking sort it out, mate. This ain't right. And she went, well, all right, well, let's put you somewhere then. Oh, carry on. Almost pissed off because she wasn't getting her claim early, and this went into the bigger side then. But even from then, it still took 8 months to get to see a psychiatrist for a 3-hour appointment, and then it took 6 months to start my therapy, and then I did like the initial 6 sessions they give you, and then I waited another. They said, "Oh, well, we're going to apply for more sessions." That was 6 months to apply for 4 sessions, for another, whatever it was, 20 sessions or something it was. So it carried on, and then again another 6 months. So this whole process, from start to finish, from the day of the last accident, was almost 5 years before I was really even engaging. Really getting involved, getting stuck into what my problem was. Even 5-6 years, and then it took about a couple of years, and then they just stopped dead. Like everything else, just that's it. We're not bothering with you. So I ended up then just going it alone, and here I am now. Like I said, 10 years into the timeline, and helping myself. I'm literally just helping myself. I'm doing what I love doing. I'm pushing myself in my job, and I'm enjoying myself doing this, and I'm talking to you. And yeah, I'm low today, probably sound by the sound of my voice, not as excitable as I was yesterday, but I'm still making the effort. I'm still getting involved because I know this helps me. I know these changes, these friendship dynamics that I'm looking at, this pushing myself out of the comfort zone, the, making myself feel comfortable, meditation, cold water therapy. I talk about these all the time because they are helping me. They do help you. They get you up into the next step. It's important to not look up a flight of steps and then say to yourself, I want to get to the top of the stairs, but I can't see the top of the stairs. But I can see the first step in front of me. Then just take the first step, wait for the next step to clear, and then take the next step. That is the journey. That is what we've got to do. Because if you want to just get to the top of the stairs and you press the escalator button, you're bypassing everything that is going to give you the strength to continue and sustain mental health, mental illness or mental injury, and the coping mechanisms. Because the whole journey it takes time. We have to develop the right coping mechanisms for our system, our body, what our body wants. We're all individuals. Every single one of us is a different character. We are all unique human beings, so we all deal with things different. Now, yes, some of us are categorized as dealing with things similarly. I get that. But at the same time, it's acknowledging that really we all have had different experiences in life. We've all been brought up differently. And so even if your fundamental outlook on life is similar to someone else, you're ambitious, you're a bit fiery, etc., etc. And I might be stood right next to someone with the same, outlook and the same sort of personality, but I guarantee we'll be different because he'd have been brought up or different to me, and I'd have been brought up different to him. So for me, I've been brought up through the military, very structured, very neat, tidy, clean, OCD, kind of that sort of aspect. That other person might have been brought up, through, I don't know, bloody the highest level of education, but still be fiery, but complete different outlook on life. He'll manipulate his personality to fit his own lifestyle. And rightly so, you might have someone who's completely and utterly lazy, but still have the fiery aspect, but never really gets to the fiery aspect because they're lazy. So we're all unique in how we deal with things, and we've all got percentages of ways we deal with things. I might be slightly more fiery than him, etc., etc. So it's really important to address that, and it's really important to deal with us in a unique way. And that is where I think there's something like categorizing these sort of things will help. It will help pick things up early. So he does, I think, going back, Piers Morgan, I do think he has a point. We are clogging the system up. Something like, I think that the statistic last year was 33 million people in the UK, bearing in fact, it's like 65 million in the UK. So something like half of our population in the UK has mental health problems. Severe mental health problems. That's what they're saying. That's what the statistic is. Now, I get that. But I also think that by categorizing these appropriately to how to deal with those mental health problems will help us in developing coping mechanisms specific to that, rather than just coping mechanisms for a generic. And you go to cognitive behavior therapy, which is what I went to, and you are just sort of lumped in. I remember my therapist talking to me about, the different types of people that she's helped. And, she's gone from car crash people like me to abuse people. And we're all in the same category, talking to the same woman that's been trained the same way. And I'm not saying she's not qualified. She is more than qualified. She was absolutely amazing. But very generic in her approach. It was apparent that EMDR wouldn't work for me, but it might work for the next person. But you might have a specific way of actually dealing with PTSD in this way. Bipolar, ADHD, etc., this way. And you go there and it'll be a quicker diagnosis because they'll know the things they're looking for. You've been signposted to the right journey. Let's deal with it. They'll look at your thing and they'll go, right, mental injury. He's had a car crash or 3 car crashes. He's complaining of this. This is PTSD. Let's get him in and deal with him. Boom, 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 boom. This is what you need. This is what the average recommended therapy sessions are. You might need to tweak it. You might need a little less. You might need a little bit more. We can deal with that. We deal with these coping mechanisms and just boom, boom, boom. And the same as if you go down to like your mental illness category, and you could just say, well, bipolar, boom, these are the normal traits, because there is levels, but there's all similar signs. And illness will be in that category. And mental health, relationship problems or friendship problems or, stress, anxiety, minor, whatever, you're going to get helped. And they're going to deal with, the coping mechanisms that are going to be required to get you fit quicker. So it's definitely something to think about, isn't it? I certainly know, like I said, I dive back to what I just said. And if I'd have been picked up sooner and hadn't have been to the point where I developed these crippling side effects and these destructive coping mechanisms that I've developed, I wouldn't be battling this now. I wouldn't have got to the point where I shut myself away. I wouldn't have got to the point where I turned to anger and just embedded that into me for 6 years. I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have had the anxiety of driving and reinforced it, by every time I go in the car. I would have learned what a coping mechanism was. And I'd have learned about a coping mechanism at the start of the journey, knowing what straight away, get in the car, get yourself comfortable, get yourself safe. Or I'd have done everything that I do now, but it's taken me 10 years to do. So it's really important. I think that is something to think. It really is something to think about. I think if we were dealing with those people in different ways, we'd certainly be looking at it differently, and we can actually specialise, in certain areas. So we're not just having a psychiatrist that's, bouncing around different places, trying to read hundreds of cases and establish, but they're so different that she's going, she could be jumping from, suicidal or self-harm to anxiety to PTSD to another PTSD, but a different form of PTSD that was caused by something different. Do you know what I mean? And then jumping straight back into anxiety that's called, they're dealing with so much information that no wonder they're clogged, no wonder they're struggling, and no wonder if that stat is true, 33 million, it's interesting, but how many people are pulling the wool? How many people aren't being seen that should be being seen? That's more of an interesting question for me to say. How many people aren't being seen? If that figure is 33 million and they're saying that there's a massive backlog, how many people are getting to the point where they're committing suicide or they're self-harming or, destroying relationships and friendships, and all of this before they even get help? They might get to the point where they start on the radar. I mean, I know we needed it for our daughter, and they said it was a year to 18 months waiting list. I was like, so you want me to manage this? Luckily, I'm very, very passionate about this. But what if you weren't that sort of person? What if you were a person that struggled with mental health? What if you've got your own mental health condition? All of these factors, but they expect you to go, nope, you need to look after your daughter with no specialist training for 18 months, and maybe we can get in to look at you. It's a difficult process. So what's to say that I'm going to strongly support her to make sure we get through this together as a family unit, because that's the purpose of this. But I've seen it firsthand with both of my daughters. 2 of my 3 daughters have had really bad mental health problems, and I know that it's exacerbated by social media. I know it is. I don't care what anyone says. TikTok and Snapchat and the extensive bullying that they've experienced, all from being targeted on a media device that they can't switch off. So I know for a fact that's, and again, we're clogging up this mental health system, but really we just need an education campaign for children, highlighting the problems. That's literally the quickest route to it. Instead of sitting there and going, oh, mental health. The reason we think mental health at the moment is a mollycoddle state is because everybody is just fucking stressed and no support and don't know how to deal with these things. Christ, I'm from the 80s and I've grown up with the transition of media. My daughters So I know what it was like before with cassette players and fucking no mobile phones. And I've worked with a pager and all the other things. But I also remember standing in a fucking red phone box, putting 20p in to talk to my mate. You know, or pressing a certain number and reversing the charges because I had no fucking money and I need to get home. I know those times. I've done those situations. So, but that was a happier time for me. So I've seen the transition, and for me personally, I've stopped using a lot of my media. Really, like I said, I don't watch TV. I hardly use my phone. I don't really use my iPad. I'm not really engaging with any of that because I don't like it. I don't like what it's made me become. But my children have grown up with it, so it's like an extension of their hands. So it's really, really difficult to pry that away because we have flooded them with so much information that it's become an addiction. So we just need an education campaign. But this is all because the mental health system is so fucking messed up that it's hard to deal with these things. An education campaign to go and sort of go to schools and walk into schools and go, right, you fucking idiots, stop using your mobile phones because it's causing this, this and this. You are bullying each other outside of your normal hours. If you don't like someone, you can't get away from them. Rah, 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 rah. Do you know what I mean? I categorically remember a girl who was attacking my daughter, who had already previously attacked my daughter and punched her in the back of the head and knocked her out whilst I was away. So this was a very, very vicious girl. And she was targeting my daughter, and I couldn't do anything about it because of her age. You know, she was 15. She was a girl from, you know, a particular background. And, you know, she didn't know anything else apart from violence. And I'd had chats with her to try, you know, before I established. But there was nothing there for her. There was nothing. She just wanted violence. And I remember seeing text messages where this girl had bullied someone else into using their phone to send a text message to my daughter to abuse her through that. So there's just no getting away from it. If I don't like someone, I just switch them off, you know, just done. But the kids can't do that because there's no way of engaging with their other friends. Whereas I'm at an age where I can bypass that. And if I don't talk to someone for a night or a couple of nights or a couple of weeks, whatever, it doesn't faze me. Whereas the kids don't, they need that. They need that because it's become an addiction. If we had education campaigns out and the right signposts for these people, would we help? I think we would. Interesting debate, though. Interesting debate, that. I mean, I've debated the hell out of it from my side of view, but I do want to do a debate. I might set it up for tomorrow, if I can. If you're listening and want to jump on this debate, give me a shout, because it'd be interesting to know what your thoughts are, whether you've dealt with the system, whether you're dealing with the system, whether you know, whether you're put off by the system purely because of those problems and the lack of support. Interesting, very interesting, and I'd like to know some thoughts on that. And certainly something I want to debate on the next one. And it'd be interesting to get a good debate with somebody and see what they think. Whether they reinforce me or, you know, my opinion, or they go against my opinion and go, in actual fact, no, there's not enough support. Or, I don't know, it might be a plethora of questions that's chucked my way. So thank you for listening. I really appreciate this. And do you know what? I had a little perk up there at the end. I don't know why. I think I was chucking ideas, and the ambitious side of me took over. I was like, oh, I could quite be interesting going to schools and talking to kids about mental health. Little personal thing. You know, I was something I was going to do in my last role. Actually, I was really heavily involved in going to speak. They were trying to get something rolling where I spoke to the young cadets about mental health and offered them the support that there's just not there. Because I was so honest, the welfare officer said, "You're so honest, James. You've walked there. You don't know me. You've explained your life to me with all the details, and not phased at all." I was like, no, there's no point in me being phased about this. I might as well talk about my issues and be honest about my issues so we can help resolve them as a team. Like I said, I had to explain to my boss how I work because, you know, I felt that he was, you know, sort of chinning me off and ignoring my emails. In actual fact, he just wasn't, he wasn't used to having to acknowledge back, but that's how my mind works. So if you're not honest, you can fail. You really can. So, but we'll see. We'll see what's around the corner. Thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate your time. And I look forward to the next live debate. That's a little exciting thing, actually, and I know this will be a good one. So, yeah, thank you for listening, and yeah, take care. Bye now.